Are you spending too much time with the wrong people? Are you letting unqualified suspects into your pipeline? Like cholesterol in your bloodstream, unqualified suspects slow down your sales metabolism and shorten your life as a professional salesperson. Pre-qualify your suspects before you invite them into your pipeline on today's Live at the Gym. Hi, I'm Dale Fallon, and for over 20 years in my training experience with salespeople, one of the biggest concerns that I have heard is that people spend too much time with sales that don't close, too much time with people that are not ideal for them. They become unpaid consultants. They spend hours upon hours working with people that are not right for them in their business. Finding the right client is a key skill in sales, and knowing the difference between a suspect and a prospect is what we're going to talk about today. I don't want you to let suspects into your pipeline. I want you to be great at qualifying them so that you can let qualified prospects into your pipeline. But on today's gym, we have a great honor. We have a black belt in interpersonal communication. Randy Beaman is joining us today. Randy is the Vice President and Relationship Manager of Corporate Banking at Univest Bank and Trust in Doylestown, PA. And he's also, and probably more importantly for Randy, a father of 4 beautiful kids. Welcome, Randy. It's great to see you again. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks for having me, Dale. I work with Univest Bank, do commercial lending out here in Bucks and Montgomery County, north of Philadelphia, and really all in the greater Philadelphia region. So commercial lending focused primarily on locally owned middle market businesses, real estate owners. We provide lending solutions and all sorts of banking solutions.
Yeah. And Randy goes way back with the communication gym, actually one of our first graduating black belts in interpersonal communication quite a few years ago. And he's gone on to continue a great career in banking. And it's nice to have you back, Randy.
Thanks for having me.
So today what we want to talk about is prospecting and qualifying prospects. We're going to go over 2 communication tools that'll help you do that. The first we call the 4 key attributes, the things you really should know before you invite someone into your pipeline. And then we're going to talk about how you find those things out in the networking conversation or even in your early sales conversations. So touching base with Randy, do you find yourself spending too much time with people that aren't where you need to be?
Certainly. Yeah, that certainly happens. So we've got all sorts of events that we attend, and sometimes it's tough dodging through the room trying to find the right people to talk to.
Yeah. So our tool today, we start with the 4 key attributes, are the 4 things that you really should know. And when I talk about inviting someone into your pipeline, to me, it speaks of valuing your time and theirs, and making sure that you're not wasting theirs and they're not wasting yours. So we want to make sure that we know 4 things about the person before we invite them into our pipeline. First of all are they the decision maker, right? Are they the ones that can help you, that can actually make that decision? Sometimes that's an individual. I would imagine, Randy, in your case, you have some team decision makers as well.
Yeah, that's right. Mostly I work with business owners. Sometimes that could be a controller or a group of individuals that are the decision maker for a business.
Yeah. So we want to find that out early in conversation, make sure we have those people in the room. A lot of salespeople spend a lot of time talking to people that aren't their decision maker. The second and most important, I think, aspect is that they have a problem that you're qualified to solve. Understanding, you don't dive deep into it in the pre-qualification phase, but we want to make sure that they've got an identifiable problem that you are uniquely qualified to solve. So what would be one example there, Randy, of a problem where you could solve for them?
Sure. Usually, rather than going to product first, we just focus on having a relationship with your bank. So asking questions about how's your relationship with your bank, or who do you have a relationship with currently? Just the idea of actually having open communication with a lender, with a banker is foreign to some business owners. So we like to start there.
Yeah. So one problem that you would solve for them is a good personal relationship with a banker that understands their business and knows where they want to go.
Yeah, that's right.
Fair. All right, I got to make sure I get my order right, Randy. The next one is the budget. You want to make sure that they've got a budget and a range that meets within your services or your needs, and have that conversation early on to make sure. That's probably a different one for you to handle a little bit relative to budget, because it has to do with percentages and what they can afford. How early do you go into that conversation?
Sure. Yeah, it depends on where how we get into the conversation. Sometimes it's just a matter of assessing what's the scope of the business that we're working with here. But as far as specifics, certainly we offer lending solutions. So if somebody's talking about a specific project or something they want to do with their business, we're asking, what's the scope of the project? How much are you looking to borrow? How much is that going to cost for whatever that next big project is, whether it's expanding their business, purchasing a building, or purchasing equipment, any number of things. Yeah. What's the scope?
And I know a lot of business development people who may have struggles getting into that conversation about budget, or not want to talk about it early on. One of the things that we want you to do, or encourage you to do, is get good at, number one, building rapport. And then number two, asking some of those tough questions early on to make sure that you're not spending weeks in a conversation that isn't going to go somewhere. And it also speaks to the prospect that you're serious about it, that you're getting serious about moving them into the pipeline. The difference that we make between a suspect and a prospect are having and knowing all four of these criteria. And we'll talk about the final one in a second. But when I want you to let qualified people into your pipeline and invite them into those sales conversations, so you're not spinning a lot of wheels, which I think a lot of salespeople do, and a lot of professional business development people do, with people who may or may not be qualified. So the final piece of the puzzle is their sense of urgency, is their timeline, making sure that they not only have an understanding of when they'd be willing to move, which is really what this is about, but are they ready to move, right? A lot of people have a lot of ideas, and getting it out on the table to say, if everything goes perfectly, when would you be willing to make this move? I like your wry smile. The smile there tells me that's a moment for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so much of it depends on the timing. And so, if we're talking about a specific project or a specific need for lending, we try to start with the end in mind and say, when are you looking to make the purchase, or when are you looking to move into the new building? When do you need to have that piece of equipment up and running by? And then that helps us know what time frame we've got to work with. Can we hit that time frame? If somebody says in 15 days, that's a whole lot different process or procedure on our end than if they're saying, well, I'm not going to do it for another year. So really getting an understanding of what timeline they've got in mind is important. It's definitely one of the things we do up front.
And I want to ask you another question about that, because how do you approach it differently if they say, okay, well, we're going to do on this within a month, or we're going to do it within a year? Do you have a different thought process there?
Sure. Ideally, they've got some sense of urgency, but at the same time, I talked about building a relationship. It's tough to do that in a 2-week period. And so if sometimes the answer is we can't execute that fast because we can't do what we want to do to stand up a proper relationship with you. Yeah. On the other hand, if it's an emergency need and it's something that we can do and solve, then we look like the hero, and then we come back and work on some of that longer term relationship after that.
Yeah. And I love that answer. We don't have the time to stand up a proper relationship with you. And I repeat it because I want business development professionals to know that sometimes that quick transaction that seems like it might be a good thing can set you up for some difficulties down the line.
For sure.
Yeah. So, and putting that piece of the conversation out on the table is really critical. So we know we want to get these 4 key attributes in the conversation. We might have that whole conversation at a networking function, or we met someone at a picnic. We might be able to get all 4 of those. It might require another meeting, but our goal is that you get those questions, the answers to those questions, to make sure that you're talking to the decision maker. The problem fits within your wheelhouse. The sense of urgency fits within the opportunity to stand up that relationship in the best way possible, and that they've got the budget to be able to do it. Once you check those 4 key attributes, then we move them from suspect into prospect. They've earned their way into your pipeline to keep your pipeline healthy with good ideal suspects. So let's talk about how you do that. And this is where we'll get into the exercise portion, Randy, and put you through your paces here a little bit. Right. So we do that by having what we call the elevator questions. The connection there is that, always hear about the elevator speech, right? You've got till the 14th floor to convince the investor to buy your pitch. Well, in this case, we want to flip the script and say, look, you've got till the 14th floor to figure out if this is an ideal prospect for you. Is it right for you? So here's the exercise we'll do, Randy. I'm going to drop you virtually into a room with 20 people. Only one of them is a perfect prospect for you, and I mean perfect. But you only get to ask each one 3 questions to figure out who that is. Let's talk a little bit about those questions that you would ask and how you might frame them to figure out to get the right one. What'd you come up with, Ron?
Sure. I mean, the first thing that I'm doing is saying, "Hi, I'm Randy. What do you do?" Right? Of course, introduce yourself, but what do you do? And try to get their role with a company. If I'm talking to the owner, and I might have to do a quick follow up there. Oh, do you own the company? Or if they say I'm a controller for such and such a company, right away I know I'm talking to somebody who may have decision making power. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got a specific title there that you'd be talking to, right? Owner, controller, CFO,
right.
Any other titles that would fit into that bucket for you?
Yeah. I mean, it could be a nonprofit, could be a board member, partner, somebody who's a partner in a practice, something like that. Yep.
Okay. So figuring out their role and also knowing within your industry, what roles are the decision-making roles in that industry and in that field. So we've done the niceties. Let's assume we've already got great rapport and we want to ask our second question. What do you have?
Sure. I like to ask them how their relationship is with their bank. One of the first things I'm trying to identify is this somebody who's super happy with their bank? They've got a great open communication relationship, or do I get somebody who bristles at the idea of when I mention a bank just because their experience has been primarily negative? So it's never all or one or the other, but somewhere in the middle. So how's the relationship with the bank? How's that going? Usually you can get to the next step with that.
And I'd imagine you have a few people who go, relationship with the bank? What are you talking about?
Right.
Are you supposed to have a relationship with your bank?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just the concept of actually having open communication, of having a relationship with a banker, somebody that you talk with on a regular basis. Not every business owner has that. So we're happy to be able to provide that.
Yeah. So if we find out we've got the decision maker and they may have some difficulties in their relationship with the bank, where do we go next?
Well, from there, a lot of times we might get into a conversation about what they're doing with their business, or what that specific project might be, what their plans are. I find that they tend to bring up that piece of the conversation as the next level after we talk about a relationship with the bank. Well, I'm working on purchasing a building, or they've just given me a quote on something like that. So then I go to the timing question. And if I have to pick just one, I may jump over the budgeting question or the scope of the project and jump to, well, what's your time frame for that project, just to develop that sense of urgency or understand where I need to take it from there.
Okay, good. So you go to the timing, figure out where are they serious, or is it something that's a wider time frame? And you snuck in the fourth one in there, right? What's the scope of work, or what ideas do you have that are coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, absolutely. If they're mentioning a specific project, I like to say, what's the scope of the project? What size? That helps me, because I've got a ceiling on how much I can do, but maybe more importantly, I've got a floor. We find a lot of really good businesses who may be looking to borrow a smaller amount than what I typically focus on, and we've got great colleagues who can help them with that. But I want to get those people connected with my colleagues who handle that sort of business as quickly as possible.
Yeah. And that's a perfect example of why you use these questions, right? We don't want to waste their time. We don't want to waste your time. And you have peers who can help them to do that piece of business. So with clarifying, what that ceiling and floor is, ask the right question to get you where you want to be. And you can very easily pivot to, hey, I want to make sure to introduce you to my friend, John Fredrickson, who can help you out with that level of loan. And you do a nice job of heralding, which we've talked about in other sessions here. That's when you've got your good heralds ready to go and build on from there. So to wrap up, I think, Randy, you've done a great job of demonstrating, and I'm not surprised by this because you've been a professional at this for a long time. So getting to that place from, hi, how you doing? My name's Randy, to, is this a person that I should be investing time and energy into and building that relationship, both for the upfront transaction, but more importantly, from your point, that relationship for long term. You want to get there quickly, efficiently, and still building rapport in a professional way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I imagine that's what keeps you rocking and rolling, man.
Yeah, every day. That's what we're constantly doing, for sure. It's always looking for more business. So.
Yeah. Good. So a quick recap on our lesson for today. You got to make sure you understand those 4 key attributes. Are you talking to the decision maker? Do they have a problem that you're uniquely qualified to solve? Do they have a budget that allows them to take action on that? And what's their sense of time? Are they ready to move on it? And have in your pocket, at the ready, really polished up, some good questions that are going to help you get those answers for you. And once you do that, it sets you up to make sure that you're bringing the right people into your pipeline. Randy, I want to thank you for being with us today. I really appreciate it. It's great to see you again. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today live at the gym. Our goal is to inspire you to practice your communication skills so that you can continually improve your quality of life. I want to make sure that you grab the page from the TCG Playbook down below, like our page, follow us here on LinkedIn, and subscribe to our blog. And join us next week here live at the gym at 11:30 Eastern, and we'll see you at the gym. Thanks, Randy.
Thanks, Dale. Take care.